Thanks for joining Sales with Suli, a mom of three who spent the last 12 summers knocking doors. Welcome to my podcast where I talk about all things women, the ups and downs of my journey, and what it takes to find success on and off the doors. Enjoy this episode. Hi, welcome back to this week's episode of Sales with Suli. This is definitely one that's been a long time coming. Several of you guys have been asking to have my brother Mikey on the show, and he's going to be finally here today, even though I looked up to a text of, I'm not going to make it, and then his ass shows up still.
Okay.
That's
up and she's still not ready.
This is going to be the preface of our show and relationship. So I kind of wanted to talk today or this week. There's a lot of us in the door-to-door space who are recruiting our sisters, our friends, our family members, our whoever the heck else that we have basically at a 10 feet reach. We're like, hey, you should come and do sales. And so I kind of want to talk about the dynamics of, working with family, running a business, having super high level siblings trying to accomplish a lot of different things, and having different outlooks in sales. But I want to introduce Mikey, and I'm going to let him just tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us what you've done in sales, like when you got into sales, and kind of what you're doing now.
You don't have an introduction ready?
My introduction is you're my brother, and he is going to tell us all the cool, awesome things about him.
Have like a whole monologue, but okay,
I don't have a monologue. This guy.
No, my name is Mikey. I am Suli's brother. I think we've done sales. When did we get active together? It was like
I know, that's why I couldn't remember. I can't remember the exact year, but there was like an episode where I was talking about how I left both of my kids in Utah. My husband was working in California out of state, and I felt guilty needing to go and work with my brother because it was your first year. It must have been 2000. Yeah, the year Ty was born. Yeah, 2013.
Yeah, it was in Sacramento. I remember that one. Dang, that's so long ago. Next year will be 10 years.
10 years ago since the first time that you're in.
I went on door to door.
I didn't even think
Isn't
about
crazy?
that.
Yeah. Well, my name is Mikey. I'm Suli's brother.
For the fourth time.
Well, you keep interrupting me now. Well, at the end of the day, it's really cool. Door to door I feel like it's a space that's always been there. I think my first summer, I always knew it was good for me, I did my first summer in Sacramento, and then that was the time I went to BYU. I graduated from BYU. I sold for Aptiv, sold for Vivint, and then I went and became a news journalist. I was a news reporter in Texas and California, and then I left to start a social media company, which is now thriving, and it's all part of, adding door-to-door to it, which I remember hitting up Suli, and she was wanting me to do her social media page, and I was like, well, Solar, how much are you making, sis? Like, I'm like, let me come out for a week, and I came out, I think, for like 2 weeks, and I was just like, not me making.
Yeah, he recruited this. So FYI, I just thought about this. Yes, because I'm like, yeah, take over my page, like do this, and it was so funny. So I do want to preface, because we are going to get into this. Being like siblings and working in the door-to-door space. Yes, it was Mikey's like first year. He's not going into all the details that I want to get into, but Mikey is one of those types of people or sales reps that everybody just loves. It's like annoying because he and I are competitive. And so like half the time, like I'd be showing up late to lunch because he's like in there yip yapping with someone's mom, or like someone invited them on a date or whatever the heck else. Like Mikey is just really good at building relationships. And so because of...
It's so nice to hear you talk nice about me.
This guy. Ask this guy. Yes. And so he's just really good at building like connections and relationships. It's why, one, he has a low cancellation rate. But two, it's just why people just naturally trust him. And the thing is that became a little bit tricky for us in the door-to-door space. So I ended up having like our sister came and sold with us as well. And so the family dynamics of having, three siblings who are pretty red personalities at time in the sense of like, we have to be heard, we have to do these things. But I remember vividly because of like, just some of the beliefs that I had. I wanted things like my way. Mikey wanted to do things another way. Like the reason why he went to Vivint or went to another company was because the sibling thing wasn't working. Like he, was upset at me for one way or another. And for me, that was like a time in my life that I feel like I definitely could have been a better leader. And so I want to go back to some of those dynamics of what it's like working with your sisters in door to door from then to now. Because you basically had two sisters that you're working with, but your first summer, it was just you and I. So it was a little bit better because you were just kind of like, I don't want to say humble, but you were new. So you were just like eating everything up. Well, I have to learn from her. I have to do all these things. And then you got like a little bit better the following year. And it was kind of like, now I know what I'm doing. Like I tell people all the time, I get so annoyed with Mikey because he is a fast ass learner. Like so he can pick things up so quickly where the rest of us, like me, I have to take weeks, days, months to be able to learn things. And so you see someone come and just simply la-di-da-di-da and do it in a good way. But yeah, I want to talk about the dynamics of what it was like your first few years, like actually working with family members and siblings in the door-to-door space.
Yeah, the first year I think for me, a lot of people look at it as, even though me and Sully are a little crazy towards each other, but I'm always grateful that I had that first 2 summers with you because I did feel like you always try to have my back. You knew I was a college student, I was starting out. So it was also nice to have my brother-in-law there and my niece there. So like, I didn't feel like I was too homesick, That was one of the problems. I brought my best friend out with me and he was missing his family the whole time. But for me, I was just like, at least I have some family here. So I didn't feel too bad.
Yeah.
But I will say those first 2 summers, it was really crazy. I think the second summer when we went out with Lonnie, with you, and then we, we saw the difference, right? Where I was able to just soak it in and learn fast. And Lonnie needs a lot more time to learn it. And I think that's what made it difficult for you because you just wanted us to learn it and get it together. But I think, the expectation of you and your status at Aptiv and all the hard work that you did, I think that was also the pressure that I had. It was like, okay, Suli's doing so well. I can't like be that brother that's like, okay, your sister's good, but you're not. So I always just had this like big kind of weight over my shoulder that I had to keep up with you. Mm-hmm. And even though we are competitive and I know we still are, but it's competitive in a good way. And then I think the dynamic now, I just feel like back then was so much learning. There was so much, it all goes down to maturity. I think back then I was just trying to get through college, wanting to make a lot of money. And then now it's just like a completely different realm that's why I feel like our relationship works even better now because I'm on my own. Like I don't bother you. I don't, I do bother you.
You do.
Some but
it's okay.
Yeah, but like I can like come in and just do my own housing and I think that's the biggest thing is for me, like what Sully was saying earlier, I know I am big on relationships and building it. So, I may not be the best at like teaching the trainings of whatever is going on with sales, but I know that, okay, behind the scenes, I can like build relationships. And so Sully's team, I've just gotten close to so many of them. And I feel like that's also helped you.
Yeah.
And definitely. I think that's what I'm doing is like, okay, I may not be able to because I'm running a whole entire business in the morning and I'm so busy, but I may not be able to be there for her for all the trainings, but maybe I can, reciprocate and maybe help out by reaching out to these setters and some of your setters. I love all of you though, but they have a lot going on and it was just really nice to hear from them and talk to them. And so I think for me, I've seen you become more charitable and more giving, and I think I've done the same thing. I think that's the biggest difference from when we first started. We were just in it for ourselves.
Yeah, like that's what I was talking about on my last episode. Is like first few years just being like it's just scarcity mindset, like hanging on to everything. Like what else?
Yeah.
What else do we need to keep? Like no. Like there's no sharing, and it's like yes, it's definitely in a space of like more abundance. Like holy cow, there's so much that we can like make and do and freaking like accomplish. But I do want to talk about like the relationships. Like, so I was talking to these two earlier about like how you are transitioning a lot of your employees personally to women. Yeah. And so I kind of want to talk about like some of the relationships or the differences that you've seen with like, okay, me last year having like all these women on the team. And this year, yes, there's definitely a ton of women. What are some of the reasons or some of the things that you have seen having women on the team is like as a positive, and then what are like some of like the things that you're just like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
these are kind of like.
Are you
some
talking about
things
your team or my team?
I'm just talking about. So we're going to talk about solar.
Okay.
For I meant not solar, just door to door. But
Okay.
then yes, we're going to transition into why you want all women.
Okay, so women crazy, but like in the best way. But I will say women, like, they also have the best, like, how do you say it? They're so well connected with what's going on in life.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against men, you know, because I am one, so I can say this, but it's just men, like, it's just like they have one straight narrow thing that they're looking at, and then the woman is just like, I got to look at this, and I have like 20 other things that I'm looking at, and that's why I think women are the best multitaskers, you know?
Literally.
Like,
we can
yes,
do
you had a lot
different-
of stressful setters last year, but they all killed it. Like, that's the thing is, I'm like, you would think they didn't by listening to them, like, oh my gosh, she went through this, but she went and closed like 2 the next day. So that's why I think women is so important, is because with men, nothing against them, but they can be a little bit more sensitive, especially when it comes to sales.
Yeah.
If they didn't get one close, they're just like on another level,
Yeah.
you know? But with women, I feel like to them, yes, they don't get a close, but they're more worried about like other things. And I'm like, hey, that's not even a big deal. Like their boyfriends or what they're doing with their jobs. Like, it's just kind of like,
yes,
but they can go and still close a lot of sales. So that's why I think women, you know, at the end of the day, they also are good with criticism. And that was one thing that I didn't notice.
So?
I think so, because trust me, they're good at criticism. They'll like pout, but they'll change.
Yeah.
With men, they'll just have like this big wall, like
an ego.
yeah, that ego thing is just insane. Whereas women, they just want to be accepted. You can tell. All they want to do is be heard. And that's why I sat there with every single one of them, listened to them, even though I'm like, hey, I need to go to bed. But like, and then at the end of the day, I look at it now, they're all still close friends. And I'm like, man, I'm so grateful I listened to their problems, hear from them. Because a lot of them, you know, you may not have some of your team members with you now, but I do see all of them working not only in different industries, but like different jobs and stuff. And I'm just like, I do feel like that one summer they had with you really helped them. So
yeah, like that's one thing that I would suggest for those of you guys who do have like a lot of women on your team, or those of you wanting to recruit more women, is being able to have a space or someone that they're going to be able to relate to. And I know for me that I'm grateful that you know, a lot of people on my team just like appreciate like Mikey and love having him around, even though he's rarely there for the meetings. And so that was kind of, I think that was like one of the differences too between like back then with pest control and right now. I think because we had the communication of like, this is what I can give, this is what I can do. Anything else is basically like extra. And so to those of you guys who are working with family members or who have siblings, or if you guys do decide that, hey, you guys do want them on their teams, I think being clear on the conversation from the very beginning is going to be super helpful. And I know like sometimes we kind of like teeter-totter, Mikey and I, because he's just like, hey, I can be available from noon to like X amount of time. And so I'm like, great, like he's all mine from this time. So anything that I ask him to do or whatever, and then it's like I ask him, you know, go to this appointment or whatnot. And he's like, oh, I was on like a Zoom call. You didn't like tell me like XYZ. And I was like, but you were supposed to be available for me this time. And then like another day I'll like give an appointment before noon. And he's like, that wasn't the time that he said. I was like, and I'm like, so I've got to be kind and nice because it's true. Like he had already set the boundary of like, this is what I can give. And so me asking anything outside of that truly is a favor, or truly is like, hey, that wasn't what we had discussed. And so,
but you know, I also think like I've gotten so good at sales to where if I give you a short amount of time, I know I can make it very effective.
Yeah.
Which I feel like couldn't happen if I wasn't the way I am. You know, I can't. That's why I always try to tell people, I'm like, don't think that Sully just like gives me like
no, and people don't hear our private conversations and our yelling text threads.
I know, I'm just like, you're so annoying. No.
Like you're just so nice to everybody else, but to me, like people do not see. But I do want to make sure that like, yeah, I'm giving. The reason that I'm bringing that up is because bringing up like being able to like set some of those boundaries. The value that, okay, you as a sibling that I know that's bringing to my team is I know that my reps can reach out to you. Like I know that you're gonna, you know, do the nightlife and hang out with them because my ass wants to be bed by like as soon as I'm done with my last close. So you know they know that they can talk to you because you're just really good at building relationships.
And I don't want to make it seem like it's like something that it's like a burden, because I truly do love getting to know your team and I love hanging out with them. And I think that's the reason why, like, yes, I'm making good money, but if I didn't love the team and
Yeah.
care for them, and that's one thing that we both talked about, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of closers coming in, the thing,
Yep.
the mindset that they have is,
greed.
I just need to make all this money, and I'm just like, hey, you got to actually care about these people. You got to actually talk to them and hear them out. You know, you don't have to be best friends with them, but
Yeah.
you know, if they're setting these appointments or out in the hot sun, knocking these doors, and that was one thing that you taught me was, I remember when I first started, like, you know, I transitioned from self-jetting to knocking or to closing. And I was like tugging with you because I didn't want to. I loved self-jetting.
And a lot of people don't even know that. Like, I had to like convince Mikey that like a setter closer model works.
To be a closer. I was like, okay. But I remember when I went to be that, and you were the first month, I was just like, well, where are they setting this? And then you had to like sit me down and be like, okay, these people are out there doing this stuff for you. And I think it was in McAllen. You were just like giving me one, and I was just like, oh my gosh, she's right. You know, at the end of the day, I know what it's like to be out there, to knock all these doors. And so I do feel like the dynamic of our relationship has changed because you have changed and I have changed, right?
Yeah.
And I think you become a lot more caring. Yeah. I'm just like, oh my gosh, not Sully treating me out, you know? Sully would be like, okay, only the dollar menu. I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl, I swear she just made 10 grand last week, but okay, we'll get a dollar menu item. But now she's like, good. We're good.
We're still going to the dollar menu.
I know, we still go, but you can let me get 2 more stuff instead of 1. But I do feel like at the end of the day, you've been more charitable, and I've learned from that too. And I'm like, okay, if I'm giving like Sully, then I'll see it. And I have seen it. Like, just everything keeps coming in abundance, not just in solar, but other parts.
In every like aspect. And I appreciate that you bring that up, because like mine and Mikey's story, it goes like, you know, long ways from like, you know, not talking to each other to then like trusting each other to now like doing business together and just like going through like the ups and downs. But I know it's because of your like great communication skills, and because we, you know, always take the time to like recognize, okay, we probably should have apologized. I probably should have this. And like, you know, you're always open to feedback. And
I think it's also our culture too, you know, growing up as Tongans and in our culture as families, we were always taught to just do it. Don't ask questions. Don't say anything. And I think me and you, that was why our dynamics was so harder at first, because we were butting in because you weren't used to that. Like, and we had to force each other to communicate. Yeah. And now I feel like we communicate so much. And I think it's like, I look at other siblings who are in our culture, and it's crazy. One of my friends, I went out to dinner with her yesterday, and she was just like, I just love that you and your siblings always have each other's back. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was just like, girl, you do not know. But at the end of the day,
at the end of the day, we're going to show up.
We are. Right? And I just remember her saying that, and I was thinking, she goes, because she knows a lot of Polynesians. She's like, they barely, if ever, like say hi to each other. Like, I mean, they'll see each other, but the sister doesn't care what the brother's doing, or they'll just show up at the event. And I just thought to myself, no, like we really do communicate. And I think that's what people don't realize is the dynamic is so great because of what happens behind the scenes. Yeah. You know? Even though we text each other like that, but you're always like communicating with me, I'm communicating with you. You know, we both have such strong heads, strong businesses that we're running. Yeah. But I also feel like I'm always like learning from you. Like that's why I open a bar in Texas. I invested in one because Sully's like, you need to invest in a bar, or not invest in a bar, but you need to invest. And so I've been doing more investments because you've been like telling me more about that. And I think a lot of siblings try to compete with one each other. Yeah. And I think that's what we did at first. Definitely. And then it wasn't working. Yeah. But if you work with your siblings and you love them and you understand them, and you know, my favorite part is like hanging out with your kids and just like being with them. I'm like, let's cry. I know, I'm like, okay, let me not cry. Why was I gonna cry? I just saw Bobby Ray's like face in my head, but like having your kids there, like in Texas, there is always just like, it's the best. It helps.
I freaking love you,
I know.
Mikey.
It grounds me so much.
Yeah, and this wasn't gonna be like this sentimental. I just know a lot of people are like, when are you two gonna get on one? But no, along that lines, I think, you know, when families are growing at different wavelengths, it makes it super hard to communicate. But I feel like it's exactly like what you said. Like you can see the differences in like our scarcity mindset into our abundance, that sometimes it's a little bit harder for us to relate and talk to our siblings or to our parents because we're just like on a different wavelength, and people can feel that, and people want to be around it. And I feel like because of the wavelength that you and I are on, like we're like, we can respect each other.
Yeah.
And so I just like appreciate like the dynamics. And I mean, I was telling everyone yesterday, like all these like millionaires at like a mastermind, and they're like, what do we need to do to like take our business to the next level? I'm like, I am the weirdest at social media. Like I like thought that it was like the dumbest thing. It's for like young people, but just to be able to see how you have found like a niche, and you have like created, you know, a full-on business from your phone, watching YouTube, and basically creating like something so massive, it just creates a different level of like respect of like, freak, like he knows what the heck that he's doing. But a lot of people look at you and they think that it's like overnight, like Mikey can do this,
know.
Mikey can
Everyone
do that.
thinks it's so easy, and I kind of get a little bit, not offended, but it's just like, okay guys, I had to put in so much work.
Yeah.
Like, people are just like, you just come
that
in here for a week and you close. I'm like,
yeah.
Did you not know that I had to fall? Like Suli literally dropped me off.
Drop me off. Okay, tell the story already, so everyone. Okay.
Let me tell you, like all these setters are getting, like, you know, pampered. They get all this stuff, and I'm just like, you guys. So he picked me up from the airport, dropped me off in the neighborhood. It was like, I'll see you at 9 p.m.
Like, go knock.
Yeah.
Go. Did you remember that video that I sent you? Like, did you watch it? Good. I'll pick you up.
And that was literally early last year. That was how I got into solar. And I remember knocking the doors, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm selling, but like,
yeah,
with the sun, and people bought. Like, I don't know. I just feel like people buy because I'm just like laughing with them.
People do not like realize that like Mikey was there at the beginning of my transition phase from pest control to solar. He first of all like sold himself, and then he was like, well, what all videos do I need to learn? Like, well, all things. And that's the cool thing about like Mikey is, yes, he does pick up things a lot quicker. So I remember like sending him videos like, hey, just like memorize this, just do whatnot. But for me, and because it's like my sibling, it's going to be easier for me to make them learn quicker. And by that, it's just letting them like just sink, like you just throw them into the ocean. And I remember telling him like, okay, we'll share a rental. Like, and he's like, well, where am I going to stay? And I'm like, you're going to be sharing with 1 billion other.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, I won't.
Mikey's bougie. I'm like, you're going to be sharing with all these other guys and whatnot. So first of all, that was already like a downfall for him. He's like, oh my gosh, pick him up, like go to area. And literally John, he's like, what? Yeah. He just goes up. I remember him vividly sitting in a cell. He's like, I got one. And in my head, I'm like, down the street. What?
You just left?
Yeah. I ran back to him. I freaking got a deal. So I go back, and it's just like super funny because he did everything wrong. I had to go redo like the paperwork.
We're sitting with this lady
for hours.
And Suli's like, how did she even agree to buy this from you? Because I did not have anything. But we just laughed, and we were talking about her cat. I'm allergic to cats, but you know, when I'm selling solar, I love cats. You know,
I love cats.
Class. I'm like, yes, your cat is cute.
That's me too. On the doors, yes, your dog is beautiful. I hate them. Your cat is beautiful.
I'm so
yeah, but anyhow, and so this is exactly what I did for Mikey. It was dropping him off and like leave, and what he didn't
literally
know,
threw me content like before I came, told me to watch it, and that was it. Like,
and I knew that this was an area that other reps had like predominantly knocked and said a ton of other companies had been there.
Yes.
Mikey's behind goes like with that first week, like how many deals did you have?
It was like 6.
Yeah,
six or seven.
like this is the level of like, you know, mindset shift when it comes to like Mikey and I. It's like sink or swim.
Yeah, Sully was like, this is all you have to work with, so you got to work with it. And I'm like, I don't have any other choice. And so I went and knocked on the doors, and I remember people were just like, we just saw this solar company out here. And I was like, well, I'm here, you know. And I just like remember selling so many people in that neighborhood, and I was just like, wait, this works, but...
Thanks for taking the time to tune in. If I've added any kind of value to your thoughts on knocking doors, please share this podcast with another female rep. Until next time, know that you are capable, you are valued, and most importantly, you are enough.